Divorce happens. In fact, it happens to almost 50% of first marriages. So let's talk about it. Welcome to Divorce Happens, a podcast to educate, inspire, support, and yes, make you laugh through divorce and beyond so that you can start fresh on the next phase of your journey. Remember, divorce happens, and then we start fresh.
You get divorced. You get divorced.
Getting divorced?
I'm getting a divorce.
You're getting a divorce.
Because she's getting a divorce.
So what if I get divorced?
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Divorce Happens, the podcast where we support you before, during, and after divorce with education, inspiration, and a little bit of laughter. Because as we know, divorce happens and then you start fresh. And we're here with one of our fresh starts experts talking about parenting, which is one of my favorite topics today. Jamie, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Hi, I'm Jamie Buzzelle, and my company is my kind of handle, which is the Repairent Coach. And I am a certified parenting coach. So I help parents connect, reconnect with their kids. I work with parents of children of all ages. So it can range from expectant parents who maybe are just really wanting to make sure that they get ahead of any concerns that they may have coming into parenting, all the way through adult parents who maybe are struggling with maybe some disconnects, some gaps in their parenting. Maybe they have an adult child that they are not getting along with, and they really want to work on that relationship. So I kind of, I can work with anybody, really.
Well, we're going to have you come back because I think that that's a whole other topic is adult children of divorce and how to deal. Like every time I talk about parenting and divorce, it's so niche because talking to a 3-year-old about divorce is totally different than talking to an 8-year-old, 12-year-old, 20-year-old, right? And divorce happens obviously all the time. So I want to jump into the repair concept today because that's your specialty, right? That's you're literally the repairent coach. Yeah. And I feel like for me personally, going through the life transition of divorce, you are so shaken up, you're so rattled, and you also have to parent and deal with this huge life transition. And so you're not maybe going to parent in the best way that you would like to for whatever that means for you. So repair is really the key here. Can you talk a little bit about what repair is, first of all?
So I think repair really is the art of learning how to apologize and take accountability. And when we talk about what that means, I think most people don't even understand what a true apology looks like and what accountability looks like. And that is something that if you can master, you can really rebuild trust in any relationship that you have. And so although my specialty, is focused on parents, really the way that I coach is relationship coaching because parenting is a relationship. It is arguably the most important relationship that you will ever have in your life. And so in order to make that relationship successful, you have to prioritize it as a relationship. It does not matter if that child is 6 months old or 60. The relationship at its core is what matters. And so repair with children is no different than repair with your spouse, with a friend, with a coworker, with a boss. And so one of the things that I've gotten very good at is repairing with my son. I mess up a lot. I yell at him. I make mistakes. Just because I'm a coach does not mean I'm not human. And I've had to really get over my own ego around when I mess up. I can't just swallow that whole and make me think that I'm a bad parent. I have to be able to recognize that I'm human, that I am also stumbling through life, that I have come into parenting with my own set of problems, issues. I'm a child of divorce. I grew up in a blended family. And because of that and because of the way I was raised and my own set of, let's call them issues just because everybody can relate to that word, even though I feel like that has a stigma. I have beliefs about when my child shows me some sort of a behavior, my immediate reaction is I may believe something about him. And even though now I have a background in this and I understand why he may be doing the things that he's doing, my brain wiring is such that my immediate reaction may not be to go directly to my training. So I may react from a place of how I was treated as a child. And I have to then repair that and say, hey, buddy, that had nothing to do with you. That was all about me. That was me having a bad day or me just reacting to something that is not your fault. I'm sorry. That's it. That's where the apology ends. I think that people typically want to defend their side of something because we want to prove to the other person in an apology that we're not bad people. We want so badly for the other person to know our intention. But I think if we can separate our intention from our impact in an apology, what an apology is an acknowledgement of impact. It is not the place where we explain our intention. So when you can separate our intention from our impact, the apology is simply, I acknowledge my impact on you, full stop. Later, once you've repaired, you can say, are you curious what my intention was? Do you want to know kind of why I did what I did? And if that person is open to it, great. You can build more intimacy around that. They can get to know you better. But you have to acknowledge somebody's feelings and your impact on them before you talk about your intention.
Jamie, you are so wise. I'm literally sitting here and I'm like, I want to bottle everything you just said and feed it to every single person that comes across. So, first of all, what you just explained has nothing to do with divorce. And I love that because
and yet it has everything to do with divorce, right?
In so many ways, yeah. But anybody listening to this, I want you to rewind that if you're a parent or in a relationship with any person, colleague, sibling, because you just explained that so beautifully. I've never heard anybody explain it so well. And it's a couple of things. I think I think parenting is so interesting, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, because there's a power dynamic, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of parents go into this not thinking it's a relationship, right? And so then they feel like they can do whatever, say whatever they want and not have to apologize because there's an inherent dynamic. I don't know. I'm just so fascinated your thoughts on that. Like, how do you retrain a brain to be like maybe like you said, we grew up in households that like you were supposed to be the good girl and you had to listen to your parents and you were grounded. And then you're trying to raise kids that you're having a more equitable, respectable relationship with. How do you go about that? This is a way bigger topic than I had you on here for, but I'm just so curious what you think of that.
Well, for me, it really started with when I had my son. I was so lost. And, I had this little toddler who was his own little person. And, I think every parent is the best parent in the world when they're not a parent. And so we have these like beliefs about like, my kid's not going to do that because I'm not going to let him do that.
Right.
And then we have a kid and we recognize like, oh, they're actually their own fully formed little human.
Right.
And so I really struggled when he was a toddler and I had a lot of friends around me. I was an older parent. My son was born when I was 37 and all of my friends had their kids younger. So they had kids that were already in elementary or even in middle school. And I was getting some crazy advice, like put hot sauce in his mouth when he talks back. What? I did it. I totally own that I did it. My son at 8 years old now still remembers at 2 me putting hot sauce in his mouth. Hey, Mom, remember when you put hot sauce in my mouth? And I'm like, oh my gosh.
We all do. We all have things. We all do. We all have things.
I know. It's just the one thing that I'm like, how do you remember that?
Especially pandemic parenting. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He was 3 and thank goodness for nap time. So anyway, that got me on this journey that led me here. And for me, it was that he wasn't learning anything during timeouts, during hot sauce, during the things that I had been told from other friends and family members. And so for me, that's what really moved the needle to kind of explore, why am I doing things that are just asserting my power over him, but he's not actually learning anything because he would repeat these same behaviors. And so I started to, kind of seek out information. And I was like the Instagram mom that I think a lot of moms are, where I was just like following all these people like the Dr. Becky. And I love information and I was reading books, but all of that wasn't really changing my behavior. And I started to recognize that like I had all this great information, but I wasn't shifting anything. And as a result, nothing was changing for him, even though I knew that like when I started to read books about like childhood development, brain development, behavior associated to childhood development, I kept reading like, well, kids do the best they can with the tools they have. I very much started to connect, oh, this isn't about the kid, it's about me. So that took me on my journey to then get coached myself. Then it changed my relationship with my son. And then I was like, well, I just have to do this and help other parents. This is like insanely important information because, you know, again, going back to the beginning of this, parenting is the most important relationship I think that we will ever have. And they just send you home with this tiny baby and there's like no information. I mean, we literally have more training to drive a car than we do to raise a human.
It's wild.
We're just kind of trusting that whatever it is that we got as children being raised by our parents is the best thing.
Yep.
What if that wasn't a great environment? We're just going to repeat those patterns. So it's not to discount how anybody was raised, because I do believe, again, most parents do the best they can with the tools they have. But like, we know a lot better now. You know, just to take childhood development as an example, in the last 30 years, we know so much more about how the brain develops, how the frontal lobe develops. Neuroscience has come so far in terms of how much the nervous system impacts a child, for just small examples.
Yeah.
So there's just so much out there, and there's so much that parents don't know, that when you learn this, it is so empowering to go, oh, my kid's not actually being a brat. They are doing the best they can with the tools they have.
Yeah.
And that is, to me, very empowering as a parent.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I can work with that.
Right. Because you can help them build tools and help them.
Yes.
So, okay. So let's jump into I'm going to give you a scenario divorce-wise, and then let's talk about repair. So let's say you are newly separated. You're on the phone with your lawyer. You are emotional. You're scared. And your 6-year-old comes in the room. Mommy, I need a snack. Mommy, I need a snack. And you go, get out. I'm on the phone. And you yell, right? How do you repair that? What would you say?
So what I would do at that point is, this actually, a very similar situation happened yesterday with my husband. He was on a Zoom call. My son's 8. He came in. I had actually told my son, hey, don't bug daddy. He's on a Zoom call. So it happened. My husband snapped at him. He was like, I told you I'm on a call. You know, the whole thing happened.
Very normal stuff. Yeah.
Yep. It happens. So what I would do after the fact, I'd finish up my call and then I'd go to my son. The first thing that I would always do is, body language is incredibly important with children. If you think about what it feels like to be little and you have this giant person above you, standing above you, looking down on you, that body language is incredibly intimidating. So the first thing that I would do is I would get down on their level and be at least eye to eye, if not lower, if you can. So like sit on the floor with them if they're on the floor playing, or at least kneel and get right eye to eye with them, because this is less threatening and it kind of shows that you're meeting them where they're at. Subconsciously, it takes the threat out of what you're doing. So that's like a very key point with children, is anytime you're going to communicate with them about something that's maybe scary or a repair, get eye to eye with them. So I would get down eye to eye with my son and I would say, hey, buddy, can I talk to you about what just happened? And most likely he's already moved on from it, because kids are resilient. That is not an excuse not to repair, by the way. Be the adult. You are modeling this because eventually they will have relationships and they learn from you. So I just want that little caveat in there. We are modeling how they will treat their future partners. So I would say earlier when I was on the call with Mr.
Lawyer,
So-and-so
right,
or Miss whomever,
Yep.
when I yelled at you, that wasn't about you. That was about what was going on the phone. It's been a stressful time. It is never your fault when mommy yells, ever. And I'm so sorry that I did that. Full stop.
Yeah, that takes a lot of being an adult, no pun intended. I mean, you literally are the adult to do that, though, right? Like for a lot of people, that's going to be really icky to do that the first couple times.
Yeah, because the inclination right there is to go, but I asked you not to come
next
in
time,
and you came in.
Right.
So then what I would do is say, when mommy, then I would repair that. And then I would say, what are some things that we can do when mommy's on a call so that we keep you busy and that mommy can finish calls without being interrupted? Or is there some sort of code that we can use if it's an emergency, like work with the age that they're at.
Right.
So that, because at 6 years old, we have to recognize that their impulse control is pretty much zero.
Yep.
And if they want a snack, that feels like an emergency.
Right.
So if you tell them only an emergency and they really want their goldfish, like, well, she said an emergency, I'm going to go in there.
Right.
Let's clearly define an emergency. They may need a visual chart. They may need a little bit more context.
Right.
Work with the age that they're at and recognize that kids are going to do the best they can with the tools they have. That child was not trying to give you a hard time when they came in there. They're 6. That's it.
Right. Right.
And no matter what they did, that's still your responsibility to own your own side of things. Yeah.
Well, that accountability is really hard for a lot of people, even when it's your child.
Very, very, and especially if you weren't modeled that as a child. Yeah.
I have one more scenario I'm going to throw at you before we end today. What about a very, very common thing in divorce, which is hearing your parents fight? Right? When you hear adults fight with each other, what can you do? And again, this is a much bigger conversation, but for anybody listening to this, who needs a tip real quick, what's something you can do? You're fighting with your soon to be ex, your kid overhears it. What do you do?
So this one really hits home for me because I was a kid in a household where there was a lot of fighting. And what I'll first say about it is how scary and disorienting it is for kids, because they don't understand what's going on. They don't understand why there's fighting. And often, no matter what is happening with the parents, the kids internalize it and they think it's their fault. And they don't know why the parents are fighting. And so I never got the parent that came into the room afterwards to talk to me about it, to give context for it, to ask how I was feeling. Like, I didn't get any of that. And I understand, like, it's a different generation. So it's not to, discount that, or it just was what it was.
Yep.
The advice that I would give is always talk to your kids. They are, number one, much more aware than we think they are. They are much smarter than we think they are. And they have a right to express how they're feeling and ask questions. And I would never lie to a child. Now, you can answer questions in an age-appropriate way, so you don't have to tell them, like, we're fighting about money.
Right.
But if they're hearing you argue, or you're openly arguing, and I would say don't openly argue in front of your kids, like, take it offline, do it after they're in bed if you can, or, as much as you can, do it when they're not around. But if it happens, the first thing that I would do is be direct with them and say, hey, I'm guessing you heard mommy and daddy arguing. Or using loud voices. You could say it that way, using loud voices. And see what they say. And if they're like, yeah, you guys were screaming and yelling, I'm guessing that might have been scary. Was that scary for you? And see what they say. And if they're like, yeah, that would be scary. What was that like for you? Ask them questions and let them answer. And then give them reassurance, number one, that had nothing to do with them, that mommy and daddy, or mommy and mommy, or daddy and daddy, or, whatever the situation is. I don't want to leave anybody out. I want to be inclusive. That parents, partners love them no matter what. It is never their fault. And if they have questions, they can always ask those questions. That it makes sense that they're scared. Don't gaslight them. Don't tell them there's nothing to be scared of. It's scary. Yelling and screaming is scary. And so that's another piece of this, is that you have to be able to acknowledge and hold space. It is scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so let them have those feelings. Let them ask questions. If you guys are fighting and maybe they've heard that word divorce, especially like by the time they're elementary age.
Yeah.
If they have asked, if they say, are you guys getting a divorce? And maybe you guys haven't talked about that yet. Don't discount that of like, of course not. We would never break up. Be like, a lot of couples do that sometimes. And just because we're fighting doesn't mean that is going to happen. But mommy and daddy do fight sometimes. Normalize that, number one, there is conflict. And if you are in the middle of a divorce and fighting, then you have to explain that that's what it is as well. Give kids an age-appropriate explanation for what's happening in a way that lets them know that their feelings are not invalid. Validate their feelings. and always acknowledge, number one, that they're safe, that they're loved, and that it's not their fault.
Oh, such good advice. What an important episode. I'm like blown away with everything you just said. You're healing like the inner me also.
Oh.
So Jamie, if somebody's listening to this and they would like to work with you, how do you work with people? Where do you work with people?
Yeah, so I'm mostly on Zoom, and so you can find me at thereparentcoach.com. So that's www.thereparentcoach.com. Repair is spelled just like you would repair a car, so it's a play on words, coach.com. And you can find all my information there. And I'm also on Instagram at the same handle if you want to just kind of check out some of my content, see what I'm all about.
Absolutely. Jamie's always giving great advice on Instagram. And of course, you can go to Fresh Starts and find Jamie there and find all of her beautiful press pieces that she does all the time and all the podcasts and all the good stuff. We appreciate you at Fresh Starts so much, Jamie. So
yes, I appreciate you guys so much.
Oh, good. We love having you. And I'm telling you, this episode is going to change someone's life, many people's lives. Before we let you go, if somebody's listening to this going through a divorce, what would be some words of encouragement you could leave them with?
Oh, gosh. Divorce is so hard. It's just, I feel for anybody that's going through it, especially with kids. I think there's, I have a really close friend that was going through divorce last year, and we were meeting with our kids, and she kept saying that she wanted to protect her daughter from being traumatized. And I'm going to do everything I can to make sure my daughter's not traumatized, and she's not going to be traumatized. And I remember I kind of said, well, it's not up to you. As so much of what we think we can control as parents isn't really up to us. What I would say is, instead of trying to control what we think we can control with our kids, be open to what our kids experience in a loving way. It is sometimes going to be traumatizing. And I don't think there's anything wrong with not being afraid of that. Like, we can't control how things land on our children. We just can't. They are their own person. I think when we start to signal that we are afraid of their fears or their, the way things are going to land on them, it makes it worse. So I think that there's a way to say, it makes sense if this is hard for you. It makes sense that if you're, co-parenting and they sleep at 2 different houses and have 2 different sets of everything, that's a lot. So acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to make it be like, we're going to make this as easy as we can. Right. I think you need to lean into the fact that it's difficult. I think that feels so much more real to a child than trying to go the other way and kind of, I guess, pretend like it isn't totally different.
Yeah.
And I remember when I said that to her, she was like, whoa, wow. And I was like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's for her to decide how much it's traumatic and how much it isn't.
It's so true.
For you to just be there.
And to be able to repair, right? Anything that you need to repair. Well, promise me you're going to come back to talk about so many other things. Okay. We're going to have you back because I want to get into the nitty gritty details about actually talking about a lot of the stuff. Jamie, you are so brilliant, and I can't wait I'm going to put it out there, your book someday to come out, because we clearly need a book. Clearly we need a book from you, because I think you see it so clearly and make it so accessible for parents. And so I'm so excited to share this episode. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate your time.
Divorce Happens is produced by Fresh Starts Registry, the only divorce registry platform for everything you need to begin again, including home items, hype team, and everything in between. Remember, divorce happens, and then we start fresh. We're here to support you before, during, and after divorce. Head to freshstartsregistry.com for more info.